Welcome to the League of Women Voters Warrant Review Town Meeting Preview for this Saturday, March 28th, 2015 Annual Town Meeting. I'm Bob Price, member of the League of Women Voters of Westford. I'm here today with Jody Ross, Westford Town Manager, and Scott Hazelton, Chairman of the Board of Selectmen. We're here to discuss some of the more interesting articles on the warrant for the upcoming town meeting. There are 28 articles on the warrant. We don't have time to discuss them all, so we've already decided to pass over the least controversial articles and to concentrate it on those that are more complex. First of all, I noticed in the appropriations there is a supplementary amount for $650,000 for snow and ice. I can't imagine what that is about. Could you explain that?
Sure, I'm happy to speak to that. Well, every year we budget a certain amount for snow and ice, and right now it's $400,000. Our expenses generally exceed that substantially, and this year a little more than usual.
More than substantially.
That's right. And this is actually the only budget that you can over-expend. So every year what happens is we spend the $400,000, and then when we go over, that's on next year's recap. And then we have to budget for that in next year. But what we're doing this year is different. We're actually funding this in free cash in the year that we used it. So I am asking to appropriate another $650,000, which would mean that our total cost for this year would be $1,050,000, and we will fund that all in fiscal year 15 instead of bumping that extra $650,000 into next year.
A more honest way of doing it, then.
Well, and not only that, it keeps it in the year that you're using it, and it helps us to keep our budget balanced.
All right. Okay, Article 6, capital appropriations. Scott, tell me a little bit about this general building repairs and maintenance.
Right, so you may recall that a prior town meeting we approved capital spending to look at the condition of town buildings, and there's like 23 of our town buildings, and determine which repairs were required at which level of priority, immediate down through someday. Of course, there was a grand total which was quite large because it's a net present value of a lot of years of repair. But certain ones had to be done more quickly than other ones, and so what we've done here is put a bunch of those spending items into one capital expense to take care of the highest priority ones this year.
How about the municipal dams?
Well, we've got 3 dams, Depot Street, Brookside, and Forge Village, right? Yeah. And of course, you've probably seen other towns been looking at their dams. The state's been looking at dams in Lowell, for example. So it's time to evaluate them, see what kind of condition they're in, what work might need to be done. So in future capital budgets, we can plan to spend that money to make sure they stay operational and safe.
Okay, thank you. What about this Kaisbrook culvert reconstruction project? What's
right,
that?
So on Route 40, it crosses Kaisbrook, which is meanders into Stony Brook eventually. And it's going to be done in a couple of phases. We'll try to keep the road open as much as we can keep it open, but maybe require some period of a road closure. And what we've done is taken the money. Every year, as you can see, we appropriate capital for certain uses. You don't always use all of it. So what we're asking this year is to use some of that free capital to fund part of this project. We do expect also, we are applying for grants. We hope to get back a substantial portion of that $600,000. Perhaps I think it's $490,000.
I think about $390.
About $4,000. And if that came back, of course, next year we would rotate that into some other capital project. But it's to repair that culvert so that the road stays good and functional.
I know the town engineer and town highway department have been after that project for some years now. So finally we're getting to it.
Yes.
Good, good. Article 7. This is the appropriate funding to design, construct a combined police and fire dispatch center at the police training room. Seems to me this has been under discussion for some years. What's happened finally that we're going ahead with this?
Well, I think we've got agreement between the police chief and the fire chief that it makes sense. we don't actually save a lot of money. We're going to have the same number of personnel. It's just far more efficient to have them in one spot. It's actually safer to have them in one spot. So what we'd be doing is taking the current police training room, hardening it so that it's got its interior bathrooms, lunch area, so that it's a secure site. And we would have both, actually we'd take out some of the tiers to make it a little bit flatter, and we combine the police and fire dispatches into that one room.
And actually, you get an increase in space by doing that of about
You get an increase in space, right? And we're going to try to. I mean, you could conceivably actually expand someday to a fourth desk, but we'll try to keep as much of our equipment as we can. This is mostly renovation money and some technology money, but we're not tossing everything. We're going to move what we can from the current dispatch centers into that space.
Yeah, as I understand it, about half the appropriation is for new equipment.
Right.
And this project has nothing at all to do directly with the potential moving of the fire station from center of town to down the hill.
I mean, physically, no.
It's going to happen no matter what.
Yes.
Okay. Which brings us to...
I mean, in fact, as part of the fire station study, we did take a look at other dispatch centers. We did a tour of the Devon Dispatch Center, for example, and it is, it's amazing what you can do with the same set of people trained, cross-trained for both disciplines. If you get multiple emergencies going at once, it is a much more efficient operation. The plan we did put in is like, more monitors so they can have better visualization of what's going on out in the street too.
So it's like a bunker for emergencies.
I wouldn't say it's a bunker, that kind of hardening, but certainly it is a secure facility.
This, of course, means there's a loss of a meeting room.
True, although we actually can take the former police dispatch center and use that for meeting space, but it would be smaller. We'll lose net square footage, that's correct. And that's something that, but as a town, we need to look at that meeting space needs separately. But, I mean, if you went to the planning board meeting Monday night, you saw overflow crowd. Many separate meetings, there's an overflow crowd. There's a separate issue we have in town, which is how do we have a little more meeting space and perhaps a bigger community meeting room as well.
Brings us to Article 8, the authorized transfer of parcel located on Boston Road. Appropriate funding to design and construct a new center fire station on Boston Road. This sounds vaguely familiar. We've been here before, about a year ago. What's changed? What's new this time?
Well, what's new is responses to many of the questions that the townspeople had. I think there was a general understanding that the current fire headquarters is not sufficient for a modern fire department, especially one in a town the size of ours with the programs that we can offer through our paramedics and other, these days we're just looking at things like biohazard containment and secure facilities for your drug box and so forth. We need to see a bigger facility. Trucks are bigger than they used to be. So that part I think is well understood. The questions were why this parcel and could it be some other parcel? So a large portion of the past year has been spent, or 6 months has been spent, taking a look at the past 3 years of our emergency responses, wherever they were in town, holding constant the current Rogers Fire Station, Station 3, because that's relatively new, and the nav station, because it's a good neighborhood station. So hold those two stations constant, look at the 3 years of call volume, and what spot in town gives you the quickest average response to all of those emergencies. And the answer is actually on Route 110, about where Walgreens and McDonald's are.
You actually hired a consultant to do this work.
Correct.
So it's really an independent educated
right.
analysis that's done.
And then what you do is you say, well, clearly we're not going to purchase McDonald's and put a firehouse there. So next logical spot is what town land is near there. And Boston Road is the nearest location. In fact, the time savings between to the average call from the current firehouse versus the current center fire station versus the proposed new station on Boston Road is over 40 seconds. I think it's 48 seconds. The difference response time between the current proposed fire station and Walgreens is like 8 seconds because both calls go through the 4 corners. So Very small difference actually in lost time between the optimum site and the optimum feasible site, but a huge response time savings between the current site and the Boston Road site.
And what's the advantage of the town property over, say, the very fine property?
Well, the key is we own it.
We own it, yeah.
And so the very fine property has been on the market, and prices are always uncertain, but we're looking at something at $6 to $8 million for that parcel in terms of past asking price. The station we expect to be around $12 million, so we'll be looking at adding a 50% price increase just to buy land. Also, there's a 52,000 square foot office building there. You can't retrofit that to high bays for a fire station, so we'll be adding a new fire station in part at least anyway there, so we aren't saving on the building space. And thirdly, that land currently is paying us, I think it's around $70,000 in property taxes, even not fully utilized. And down the road, that could be twice that if it was occupied. And we're looking at a fire station that's going to last us 30, 40 years, so it will certainly be rented and prosperous in that time frame. So the cost of the land initially, the cost to retrofit or sublet or something that office building, and then the lost tax revenue is not a smart choice from a fiscal standpoint.
Mm-hmm. Good. Article 10, this is the 12 North Main Street property. Well, what's the foreclosure status on that now?
Well, the selectmen did direct us to foreclose on the property, so that is underway right now. That has not been completed. But once that happens, this article asks the town to authorize the transfer of that parcel from the Tax Possession Sale Committee to the Board of Selectmen. And the reason that they have requested this is because this is a project that the Board of Selectmen have been kind of wrestling with or managing, however you want to put it, for the last 5 years. And it is a building, the Westford anodizing building, that continues to deteriorate. There is contamination in the soil. And John Mangiarati, the assistant town manager, and I have spent a lot of time putting together figures and applying for grants and funding to help us with this building. Governor Deval Patrick did allocate $1.5 million environmental bond towards this building, and of course we're hopeful that Governor Baker will keep that promise to the town. And we also have met with the Mass Development Office, and there's $500,000 available to help us with the cleanup, and $100,000 to help us with the assessment of the property. So we feel that if the selectmen kind of control this, they and the task force that they named several months ago, except I guess I named it at their request, will be able to make recommendations to the selectmen on how to proceed once the property's foreclosed on, and be able to complete that process. So this article just kind of alleviates a step of going to a future town meeting if the Tax Possession Sale Committee agrees to transfer it to the selectmen. They first have to declare the parcel surplus. So that is the process. It also is asking the town to appropriate just under $28,000 for an environmental insurance policy to help protect the town.
So it's not covered, wouldn't be covered by town insurance?
No, this would be a special part. Well, the town does not own this site, so this would be a kind of a rider on our insurance policy to help control our liability. It's not environmental protection, it's liability protection. Someone gets injured on the site or something while we're taking ownership. And I think the town's intent, at least what the committee seems to be recommending, is once it's cleaned up, that the town issue a request for proposals to do either a private enterprise there or a public-private partnership. It could be housing, it could be retail, it could be light manufacturing, something like that, and the selectmen would be directing us throughout the process.
I know the selectmen have spent a lot of time on this over the past couple of years.
They have, and it's a very complicated project, but it does have a historic mill that is very important to the town and to particularly the residents who live right around the area. So it's been a difficult project, but I think the selectmen have got a good kind of angle on it right now, and with these funding sources that we have, if a private party tried to do this, they would have to take loans out from some of the same agencies, but the town actually will be able to get grants to help us with the cleanup. And of course, it abuts one of our public water supplies, so there's certainly a sense of urgency to get something done there.
And there are safety issues too?
There are safety issues. There is this fire department and the police department pretty much have a do not enter policy. If there's a fire, they would just try to put it out from the outside, and certainly that could force contaminants into the Stony Brook, which we don't want. So we've been working on this for a long time, and I think we're finally to a place where we can see some future actions that will help ensure the safety of the town.
Good. Let's talk a little bit about Community Preservation Committee and the approved or recommended projects.
Sure. As you know, every year the Community Preservation Committee meets with the applicants for different projects, and they have certain amounts that they have to allocate to certain different recreation or historical open, space and that sort of thing.
This is that 3% surtax that we all pay on
exactly.
property tax.
And then we get a matching amount from the state, which varies depending on the states.
Some days it isn't so matching.
This year I don't think it's going to be quite as good as it's been in previous years. But there's a couple of interesting things here. One is that the Friends of East Boston Camps have asked to put informational kiosks up there in the camps, and they were approved. Also, in line with some Board of Selectmen goals, the Agricultural Commission has asked for money to develop a community garden at the day field, which is really exciting. They want to put up a shed, and they want some water source and fencing, and so they've asked for $42,500 for that.
Yeah. Parkerville School?
And safe access off the road too, because it's a bit of a curve.
Yes, the Parkerville Schoolhouse has asked for $28,000 to design and install a fire alarm system, because it is one of our historic buildings too, and that would include a sprinkler system, and they were approved for that.
Yeah.
There's a Healthy Lakes and Ponds collaborative, which has pretty much adopted 11 of our town bodies of water, and they're trying to keep them safe, in terms of algae, controlling algae and other aquatic growth that shouldn't be there. They were given some money to help with a 5-year or a 1-year plan, I guess, to kick that off. And there's some other assorted preservation and historic projects here on studying the Arch Bridge, Stony Brook Bridge, Bridge Street Bridge, and also the Museum Cottage and some other historic studies.
Yep. It'll be interesting. The schoolhouse, Parkerville Schoolhouse, is not on town water, so I guess they'll have to run their sprinkler system off some sort of cistern.
Yeah, I'm not actually sure how they're asking to do that, but I know that you can do a cistern or something like that, a tank or something.
Yeah, I was a Boxborough firefighter for 12 years, and they've no town water whatsoever, and you fight fires with cisterns. It's engineering, but it can be done.
Article 12, amend the wage and classification plan. Looks like we want to create a new position for a deputy fire chief.
It's a new position, but not a new, net new. So we would be creating a new position within the fire department for deputy chief. We've got 40 individuals on the fire department, which is a fairly large department to manage. Most departments this size, I think there's 22 towns in our area that we look at, and 18 have got deputy chiefs. So it's a fairly common position to have in most towns our size and departments our size. Helps with the management of the department, helps if the chief is out of town and training, vacation, whatever, to have a deputy chief. But the plan is to take a current officer, promote that individual to be the deputy chief, and so now a firefighter becomes an officer. So we don't change department head count. We just created a position internally, but so there's an incremental cost to the position, but it's not a net new hire to the town.
I think that would the appointment of the deputy chief would take place at the fall town meeting? Is that how it works?
No,
No?
we actually budgeted in fiscal year 16 for the deputy chief, so if this is approved, we will start the process to, it will probably be a promotion. I mean, it will definitely be a promotion, I guess I should say. It would be from within, so we'll start the process, and we could promote that person effective July 1st.
Whoever he is, I'm sure he'll be very happy.
He or she.
He or she. Revolving funds.
Yes, every year the town has to revote their revolving funds, and so this is something that people see every year. There's a couple of minor changes or
Some increases, no doubt.
and decreases. The first one is the lease of town buildings, which is really the road and bush buildings, and we had 500,000 in there. We've lowered it to 150,000. The reason being, we thought we would let the funds accumulate and then do a big project like a roof or whatever. But the problem is we have continuing needs in those buildings, so we haven't been able to let it accumulate. So we lowered that to 150,000. A couple other changes in here. A school bus transportation is always a minor change. And immunizations and clinical services, which are really flu shots pretty much. The Board of Health has done an amazing job of getting people vaccinated, and this year they had to go back to the Finance Committee for an extra $25,000, so we increased that amount. So anything they take in when you pay to get a flu shot goes right back into paying to purchase the flu vaccines. And then the community gardens that I mentioned earlier.
At the very end, yes.
Right. This is a revolving fund so that they are going to set a fee if you would like to lease your little plot of land to farm. They will collect those fees, and they will use those fees to help purchase materials to make the community garden run.
I can hardly wait. Article 14, the fiscal year 2016 operating budget. What's the good news?
Well, I think the good news is that it's balanced, and I saw that on the front page of the Westford News.
Oh, so it's true then.
It is true, and this is really the first time since the year 2000 that we've been able to present a balanced budget. And that's taken a lot of hard work and a lot of work over the 2008 to 2014 time period when there were lots of issues going on in the economy. But basically it means that the expenses that we have put forth to town meeting to operate the town match the revenues that we take in. In the past, we didn't really have a balanced budget at our annual town meeting. We balanced it at our October town meeting, and we always used free cash, we call it, to supplement the budget. We're not going to do that anymore. We are using free cash to pay for our capital and our other one-time expenses or unusual expenses, and this operating budget is truly balanced with revenues. So that's very exciting for the town. It's something that will keep our bond ratings in strong shape and really good news. And we're going to try to keep it like this for the next 16 years at least.
Thank you. Details at town meeting. Let's go to Article 18, the provisions of Mass General Law to create a disability commission.
Right, so we have a pedestrian safety committee, and we were looking at prioritizing sidewalks, crosswalks in town, and we picked up some new members, and in the process of discussing priorities for sidewalks, it was asked, how do we evaluate people with disabilities in neighborhoods? Is that part of our formula? And the answer was actually no, it had not been, but clearly it's an important consideration. You want to have curbs that would drop away to accommodate wheelchairs, for example. And there actually are provisions under the Mass General laws for towns to have a disabilities commission. The job is, there would be appointed a position, and the job is really to advocate for disabled individuals in town. Each town will have their own needs. There's no real cost to this unless we decide to act upon something, but this would be a way to make Westford more welcoming to more people.
Good. Article 20, leasing the former landfill for a solar project. This sounds interesting.
Well, this is a project that actually we owe to John Mangiarati, who's been quite innovative and and actually a great cost saver in the area of our energy efficiency. But we have a rather large parcel of land that is not serving any useful social function. This is a way to make it a little more town use from the land. And to be clear, we're not going to put solar panels on the whole property. It's a relatively small piece of it. We're not going to interfere with any of the conservation trails. We'll be working with any and all the butters to make sure that it's not a disturbance to them. We're not going to be breaking the cap on the landfill. We're going to be, very careful with all of that. But we can, in fact, put some solar panels in there, which would, create some additional. We actually would lease that land to a solar company, and we could then, get some additional revenue for the town off that lease.
Finally, let's talk about Article 27, the disposition of the former fire substation on Broadway.
Right. So we've got we had two when we built Rogers Station, Station 3. We closed two old fire stations, one in Graniteville, one in Forest Village. One of those became our IT department, which long run probably is not a great place to have it, but that's a nice sweet home for them right now. And the other one on Broadway has been surplus for some time. It's been home to recreation and other departments over time. It's been storage, but it's really best divested from the towns. We don't have to pay money to fix it, and we can get tax revenue back from it. So we had an advisory committee working with the town manager to say, well, what's the best RFP process for this? We created a RFP. There were two bids, and one of them was the winning bid, both on the money offered for the site and then the point score on the RFP. So we've provisionally awarded that, but we have to have town meeting approval to dispose of the property.
Sure. Okay, well, we're out of time, so let's wrap it up. And all that remains is for you, the voters, to come to the Saturday, March 28th annual town meeting. It will be held at the Abbott School Gym, beginning at 10 o'clock in the morning. If we run out of time on Saturday, the adjourned meeting will reconvene the following Monday evening at 7. And note that a box lunch will be served on Saturday for a nominal fee in the adjacent cafeteria during the lunch break. In the meantime, be sure to look for the Finance Committee report and recommendations booklet that just arrived in your mailbox. It's a wealth of information about the finances of the town and makes for unexpectedly interesting reading. It also contains a copy of the warrant for the annual town meeting. The actual warrant, the actual motions document will of course be handed out at town meeting as usual, but you'll need the Finance Committee booklet for some of the details of certain motions. So remember to take the booklet with you to the meeting. Finally, thanks to Jody Ross, Scott Hazelton for participating in this review. It was sponsored by the League of Women Voters as part of their voter education process. And thanks to you, the voters, for watching. The League encourages all of you to come to the annual town meeting and to participate in your role as legislators in our open town meeting form of government.